Captain Sam Torres felt the cold metal chains around his wrists as the tall alien guards pushed him forward through the massive corridors. The walls around him sparkled with strange purple crystals that gave off their own light. He had never seen anything like this place before. The Zephyrian Empire was famous across the galaxy for its beautiful but dangerous architecture. And now Sam was seeing it up close. 3 days ago, Sam had been leading a peaceful diplomatic mission to establish trade relations with the Zephyrians. His small ship, the Earth vessel Harmony, had been carrying gifts and messages of friendship from the Human Federation. But something had gone wrong during their approach to the planet. The Zephyrian military had surrounded his ship with their crystal fighters and demanded surrender. Sam's crew of 5 had been separated from him after their capture. He hoped they were safe, but right now he had bigger problems. The guards were taking him to meet their queen, and everyone in the galaxy knew that Queen Vex was not known for her mercy toward visitors. "Move faster, soft skin," growled the guard on his left. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 6 arms that ended in razor-sharp claws. Its skin looked like living crystal, shifting between deep blue and purple colors as it moved. 2 large eyes sat on the sides of its angular head, while 2 smaller ones were positioned on its forehead. Sam tried to keep up with their long strides. His brown hair was still messy from the struggle during his capture, and his blue diplomatic uniform was torn in several places. But he kept his head up and his shoulders straight. He was representing humanity here, and he would not show fear. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that took Sam's breath away. The ceiling stretched up so high that he could barely see the top, and massive crystal pillars supported the entire structure. Each pillar was a different color, creating a rainbow of light that danced across the polished floor. Hundreds of Zephyrian nobles stood along the sides of the chamber, their crystalline skin glittering in the strange light. At the far end of the chamber sat the most impressive sight Sam had ever witnessed. The throne itself was carved from a single enormous black crystal that seemed to absorb light, rather than reflect it. Strange symbols glowed along its surface with a soft silver light. But it was not the throne that commanded attention. Queen Vex sat upon the crystal throne like a living work of art. She was even taller than her guards, perhaps 9 feet in height, with 6 graceful arms that moved with perfect coordination. Her skin was different from the others Sam had seen. Instead of the blue and purple shades of her subjects, her crystalline flesh shifted between deep black and silver, creating patterns that seemed to flow like liquid metal across her form. Her head was crowned with a ring of sharp black crystal spikes that curved upward like a crown of thorns. Her eyes, each the size of Sam's fist, studied him with intense focus as he approached. Her face was angular and sharp, with high cheekbones and a strong jaw that spoke of power and authority. The guards forced Sam to stop about 20 feet from the throne. The entire chamber fell silent except for the soft humming sound that the crystal pillars made. As energy flowed through them, Sam could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching him, waiting to see what would happen next. Queen Vex leaned forward slightly, and when she spoke, her voice filled the entire chamber without effort. It was like the sound of wind chimes mixed with the ring of metal on metal, beautiful but somehow dangerous at the same time. "So," she said, each word carefully pronounced, "this is what the humans send to my empire. A small, weak creature with soft flesh and dull colors." She stood up from her throne, and Sam had to tilt his head back to look at her face. "I had heard stories about your species, little human, tales of your strange ships and your odd customs. But seeing you now, I find myself wondering how such pathetic beings ever learned to travel between the stars." The Zephyrian nobles around the chamber began to make clicking sounds with their claws, which Sam guessed was their way of showing agreement or amusement. He had studied their culture during his journey here, but there was so much he still did not understand. Queen Vex began to walk down the steps from her throne, her 6 arms moving in a hypnotic pattern as she descended. Each step she took made a soft ringing sound against the crystal floor. "Your Federation sent you here to negotiate," she continued, her 4 eyes never leaving Sam's face. "They wanted to discuss trade and cooperation. But looking at you now, I cannot imagine what my empire could possibly gain from dealing with such inferior creatures." She reached the bottom of the steps and began to circle around Sam, like a predator studying its prey. Her height meant that even when she bent down, she was still looking down at him. The chains around his wrists felt heavier under her gaze. "Your skin is so soft and pink," she said with obvious disgust. "It looks like it would tear if I touched it with just one claw. And your arms, only two of them, so weak and useless. How do you accomplish anything with such limited appendages?" She stopped directly in front of him and leaned down so that her face was close to his. "Your eyes are such a dull brown color, and they look so simple. Only two of them, and they cannot even change color to show your emotions." The queen straightened up and gestured with all 6 arms toward the assembled nobles. "Look around you, human. See the beauty and strength of my people. Our skin shines like precious gems. Our bodies are tall and powerful. Our arms can work with the precision of the finest machines. We are perfection made real." She turned back to Sam and spoke in a voice that carried to every corner of the vast chamber. "Your species disgusts me. Everything about you is wrong and ugly. Your soft flesh, your weak limbs, your pathetic size." Her eyes flashed with silver light as she delivered her final judgment. "You are the most repulsive creature I have ever laid eyes upon." The chamber erupted in clicking sounds as the nobles showed their approval of their queen's words. Some of them began to move forward, eager to see how the small human would react to such a harsh judgment. The guards beside Sam tensed, ready to act if he tried to attack or run. But Sam did not move. Instead, he looked up at Queen Vex with an expression that no one in the chamber expected to see. His brown eyes were not filled with fear or anger or shame. They were filled with wonder. For a long moment, Sam simply stared at the alien queen. He took in every detail of her appearance, from the flowing patterns of her skin to the graceful way she held her 6 arms. He studied the elegant curves of her face and the way the light from the crystal pillars reflected in her large eyes. Finally, he spoke in a quiet voice that somehow carried clearly through the silent chamber. "Your Majesty," Sam said, and his words were filled with genuine awe. "You are absolutely gorgeous." The effect of his words was immediate and dramatic. The clicking sounds from the nobles stopped as if cut off by a knife. Queen Vex took a step backward, her eyes widening in what could only be described as shock. Her 6 arms, which had been moving in their constant graceful patterns, suddenly froze in place for the first time in her long reign. Queen Vex found herself completely speechless. The silence in the chamber stretched on and on. Guards looked at each other in confusion, uncertain how to react to such an unprecedented situation. Nobles whispered among themselves in their crystal chime language, trying to understand what had just happened. Sam continued to look up at the queen with that same expression of honest admiration. There was no hint of mockery in his voice, no suggestion that he was trying to flatter her for some advantage. His words had been spoken with the simple sincerity of someone sharing an obvious truth. Queen Vex blinked her eyes in sequence, a sign of deep confusion among her people. She had been called many things in her life: powerful, dangerous, magnificent, terrifying. Other rulers had praised her strength or her intelligence when they wanted to gain her favor. Warriors had spoken of her skill in battle with respect and fear. But no one had ever called her gorgeous. No one had ever looked at her with pure appreciation for her appearance, with no other motive behind their words. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice much quieter than before. Sam's expression did not change. "I said you are gorgeous, Your Majesty. I have traveled too many worlds and seen many different species, but I have never encountered anyone as beautiful as you." The queen's skin began to shift colors more rapidly, cycling through shades of black and silver and even hints of deep blue. This was another sign of confusion among her people, though Sam did not know enough about their culture to recognize it. "You call me beautiful?" Queen Vex said slowly, as if testing the words. "Me, who you have never seen before? Me, who just declared you the most repulsive creature in existence?" "Yes," Sam replied without hesitation. "Your skin looks like living starlight. The way your arms move reminds me of a dancer performing a perfect routine. Your eyes are like jewels that hold wisdom and strength. and your presence fills this entire chamber with power and grace." He paused for a moment, then added, "I think you are the most magnificent being I have ever seen." A strange sound escaped from Queen Vex's throat, something like a gasp mixed with the chiming of crystal. She took another step back, and for the first time since she had become queen, she seemed uncertain about what to do next. The nobles in the chamber were becoming restless. This was not how these audiences were supposed to go. Prisoners were meant to beg for mercy, or offer tribute, or try to negotiate for their freedom. They were not supposed to compliment their queen's appearance and leave her standing speechless in front of her entire court. One of the guards leaned towards Sam and hissed, "What game are you playing, human? Do you think flattery will save your worthless life?" But before Sam could answer, Queen Vex raised one of her 6 arms for silence. The gesture was so commanding that every being in the chamber immediately obeyed. She stared down at Sam for a long moment, her 4 eyes studying his face as if trying to see inside his mind. "Guards," she said finally, her voice carrying a strange note that none of her subjects had heard before. "Clear the chamber. I wish to speak with this human alone." The nobles began to protest, clicking and chiming their objections. It was unthinkable for their queen to be left alone with a prisoner, especially one from an unknown species. But Queen Vex's 4 eyes flashed with silver fire, and her voice rose to fill the chamber once more. "I said clear the chamber." Now, the power in her command was absolute. Within minutes, the vast throne room was empty except for Queen Vex and Sam Torres. Even the guards had been dismissed, leaving the human's chains as his only restraint. Queen Vex walked back to her throne but did not sit down. Instead, she stood beside it, all 6 arms moving in slow, thoughtful patterns. The crystal pillars continued their soft humming, and the colored light continued to dance across the walls. But the chamber felt completely different without the crowd of observers and all-miters of rule. Queen Vex said quietly, "No being has ever spoken to me the way you just did." She turned her 4 eyes back to Sam. "My own people praise my strength because they fear my anger. Other rulers compliment my intelligence because they want my alliance. Warriors speak of my skill because they hope to avoid fighting me." She moved closer to Sam again, but this time her approach seemed curious rather than threatening. "But you, a prisoner in chains, facing possible death, looked at me and saw beauty." Her voice carried a note of wonder that matched Sam's own expression. "How is this possible?" Sam met her gaze steadily. "Your Majesty, I have learned that every species has its own kind of beauty. Humans have always been drawn to things that are strong and graceful and unique. When I look at you, I see all of those qualities and more." Queen Vex was quiet for a long time, processing his words. Finally, she spoke again, and this time her voice was softer than before. "Tell me, Sam Torres of the Human Federation, what else do you see when you look at me?" And for the first time since his capture, Sam smiled. Sam's smile seemed to change the entire atmosphere in the vast crystal chamber. Queen Vex had never seen a human smile before, and the simple expression of warmth caught her completely off guard. She had expected fear, anger, or perhaps desperate attempts at bargaining. But this genuine smile spoke of something entirely different. "What I see, Your Majesty," Sam began, his voice echoing softly in the empty chamber, "is someone who carries an enormous burden." He looked up at her towering form with those same brown eyes that showed no fear. "I see strength, yes, but also loneliness. I see power that has been used to keep others at a distance rather than bring them closer." Queen Vex's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, another sign of deep emotion among her people. She had ruled the Zephyrian Empire for over 300 years, and in all that time, no one had ever suggested that she might be lonely. The very idea seemed impossible. She was the most powerful being in the known galaxy, commander of 1,000 worlds, leader of billions of subjects. Loneliness? She repeated, her voice carrying a note of confusion. "I am never alone. I am surrounded by advisors, generals, servants, nobles. My palace houses thousands of beings who serve my every need." Sam nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Majesty, you are surrounded by people. But that is not the same thing as having companions. All those beings around you, Do any of them speak to you as an equal? Do any of them share their honest thoughts without fear? Do any of them see you as more than just their queen? The question hit Queen Vex like a physical blow. She turned away from Sam and walked toward one of the massive crystal pillars, her 6 arms moving in agitated patterns. The truth of his words was uncomfortable to face, but she could not deny it. My people respect me, she said, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. They follow my orders without question. They have built the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known under my leadership. And I am sure that is true, Sam replied gently. But respect born from fear is different from respect born from admiration. Following orders because you have to is different from following someone because you want to. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Your Majesty, when was the last time someone asked how you were feeling? When was the last time someone cared about your happiness rather than just your commands? Queen Vex placed one of her hands against the crystal pillar, and the entire structure began to glow more brightly in response to her touch. The Zephyrian royal family had a special connection to the crystal technology that powered their civilization. But even this familiar comfort could not ease the strange new feelings that Sam's words had awakened. You speak of things that have no place in leadership, she said, though her voice was quieter than before. A ruler must be strong. A ruler must be feared. Personal feelings are weaknesses that enemies can exploit. Sam shook his head. Your Majesty, I come from a species that has learned something different. We have found that true strength comes from connection, not isolation. The greatest human leaders in our history were those who understood the hearts of their people, not just their fears. Queen Vex turned back to face him, her 4 eyes studying his face intently. Tell me about these human leaders. How did they rule without fear? Sam's expression grew thoughtful. There was a leader named Gandhi who freed his entire people from oppression, without ever raising a weapon. He did it through understanding and patience. There was another named Lincoln who held a nation together during its darkest hour, by appealing to what was best in people rather than what was worst. And these leaders were successful? Queen Vex asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. More successful than conquerors who ruled through fear, Sam said. Because when people follow you by choice, they will give everything they have. When they follow you because they must, they will only give what they cannot avoid giving. Queen Vex walked slowly back toward her throne, but instead of sitting on it, she settled onto the crystal steps beside it. The action was so unexpected that Sam wondered if any of her subjects had ever seen their queen sit anywhere, except on her throne. In this position, she was still taller than him, but not by as much. You said I was gorgeous, she said suddenly, changing the subject. Explain to me how you see beauty in something so different from your own kind. Sam looked up at her, taking in the flowing patterns of light across her crystalline skin. Your Majesty, humans have a saying, beauty is not about looking like everyone else. True beauty comes from being perfectly yourself. He gestured toward her with his chained hands. Your skin tells the story of your emotions with every shift of color and light. Your 6 arms move with a coordination that creates its own kind of dance. Your height speaks of nobility and strength. Queen Vex looked down at her own arms as if seeing them for the first time. Among her own people, these features were simply normal. No one had ever suggested that they were beautiful in themselves. But we are so different, she said. How can you find beauty in something alien to your own form? That is exactly why it is beautiful, Sam replied with enthusiasm. Your Majesty, imagine if every flower in the galaxy was exactly the same shape and color. Would flowers be beautiful anymore? It is the differences that make things wonderful. When I look at you, I see something unique and magnificent that exists nowhere else in the universe. A strange sound escaped from Queen Vex's throat, something like a musical note played on crystal chimes. Sam did not know enough about Zephyrian culture to recognize it, but it was the sound her people made when they were deeply moved by something beautiful. In 300 years of rule, she said softly, no one has ever made me feel beautiful. Feared, yes. Respected, yes. But never beautiful. Sam's chains clinked softly as he moved slightly closer. Your Majesty, may I ask you something personal? Queen Vex nodded, though she seemed surprised by the request for permission. When you were young, Before you became queen, did you have friends? People who cared about you for who you were rather than what you would become? The question seemed to strike deep into old memories. Queen Vex's skin shifted through several colors before settling into a deep blue that Sam had not seen before. I was raised to be queen from the moment I was born, she said, her voice taking on a distant quality. My education focused on strategy, diplomacy, military tactics, economic theory. I was taught to see other beings as either allies or enemies, resources or threats. She paused, her four eyes looking past Sam toward memories of the distant past. There were other young nobles in the palace, but they were always aware that I would one day rule over them. They treated me with careful respect, never as an equal. So you have been alone your entire life. Sam said with genuine sympathy in his voice. I thought I was strong because of it. Queen Vex replied, I thought isolation made me powerful. It did make you powerful in one way, Sam acknowledged. But it also cut you off from something that could make you even stronger. Queen Vex leaned forward slightly, genuinely curious. What could be stronger than the fear and respect of an entire empire? The love and loyalty of people who choose to follow you, Sam said. Your Majesty, you have built an empire through conquest and intimidation. But humans have learned that the strongest bonds between people come from understanding and mutual respect. Love, Queen Vex repeated the word as if it were foreign to her. You speak of love between a ruler and subjects. Sam nodded. Not romantic love, but the love that comes from caring about each other's well-being. When people know that their leader genuinely wants them to be happy and successful, they will move mountains for that leader. Queen Vex stood up from the steps and began to pace back and forth in front of her throne. Her 6 arms moved in complex patterns that Sam was beginning to recognize as a sign of deep thought. But how can a ruler show care without appearing weak? She asked. If my subjects saw me as soft, they will lose respect for my authority, Your Majesty. Sam said with a gentle smile, there is a difference between being soft and being kind. Kindness requires great strength. It takes courage to care about others when caring makes you vulnerable. Vulnerable. Queen Vex repeated, as if the word tasted strange. I have spent my entire life eliminating vulnerabilities, but in doing so, you eliminated connections as well, Sam pointed out. Your Majesty, the strongest humans are not those who need no one. They are those who inspire others to stand with them. Willingly, Queen Vex stopped, pacing and looked directly at Sam. You speak as if you have experience with this kind of leadership. Sam's expression grew slightly sad. I have seen both kinds, Your Majesty. I have seen leaders who ruled through fear, and I have seen leaders who ruled through inspiration. The first kind may win battles, but the second kind wins hearts. And in the long run, hearts are more valuable than battles. Tell me about a leader who won hearts. Queen Vex said, settling back down on the crystal steps. Sam thought for a moment, then began to speak. There was a ship captain named Rodriguez who commanded an exploration vessel in the Outer Rim. She was small, even by human standards, and she was exploring systems that had never been mapped before. Her crew faced dangers every day, from radiation storms to hostile aliens to equipment failures that could have killed them all. Queen Vex listened intently, her 4 eyes focused completely on Sam's words. Captain Rodriguez could have ruled her ship through strict discipline and harsh punishment for mistakes, Sam continued. But instead, she made sure that every member of her crew knew that their safety and well-being mattered to her. Personally, when someone made an error, she helped them learn from it rather than punishing them. When someone faced personal problems, she took time to listen and offer support. And this made her crew more effective? Queen Vex asked. More than effective, Sam said with obvious admiration. When their ship was attacked by pirates, every single crew member fought with desperation to protect not just the ship, but their captain. When they faced a deadly radiation storm, crew members volunteered for dangerous missions to save their shipmates. Captain Rodriguez never had to order anyone to risk their life for the mission, because they were already willing to risk their lives for each other. Queen Vex's skin shifted through several shades as she processed this story. And you believe this approach would work for an empire as well as a single ship? I believe it could work even better, Sam said. Your Majesty, imagine if your subjects fought for your empire not because they feared punishment, but because they truly believed you cared about their well-being. Imagine if your generals offered honest advice because they knew you valued their input, not just their obedience. But how does one begin such a change? Queen Vex asked, and for the first time since Sam had met her, she sounded uncertain rather than commanding. Sam looked up at her with that same warm expression he had shown throughout their conversation. It begins with small acts of genuine care, Your Majesty. It begins with listening to people instead of just commanding them. It begins with showing interest in their lives, their families, their hopes. Queen Vex was quiet for a long time, her 6 arms moving in slow, thoughtful patterns. Finally, she spoke again. Sam Torres, she said. Your Federation sent you here to establish trade relations. But you have given me something far more valuable than any trade agreement. What is that? Your Majesty, you have given me a new way of seeing myself and my role as a leader, Queen Vex replied. You have shown me that strength and kindness are not opposites, but can exist together. Sam smiled again, that simple expression that had started their entire conversation. Your Majesty, I think you always had both qualities within you. Perhaps you just needed someone to help you see them. Queen Vex stood up once more. But this time her movement seemed different. There was still power and authority in her bearing, but there was something else as well. Something softer and more approachable. I am going to try something that no Zephyrian ruler has done in recorded history, she said. I am going to release you without any conditions or demands. You are free to return to your ship and your crew. Sam looked surprised. Your Majesty, I am grateful, but why? Queen Vex's eyes seemed to sparkle with something that might have been amusement. Because, Sam Torres, you have taught me that sometimes the most powerful thing a ruler can do is show mercy. Without expecting anything in return, she gestured with one of her arms, and Sam's chains fell away from his wrists. For the first time in days, he was free. But, Queen Vex continued, I hope you will consider staying as my guest for a few more days. There is much more I would like to learn about human perspectives on leadership and connection. Sam rubbed his wrists where the chains had been and looked up at the alien queen, who had just freed him. Your Majesty, I would be honored to share what little wisdom I have. Good, Queen Vex said. And Sam could have sworn he detected warmth in her crystalline voice. And Sam Torres? Yes, Your Majesty? Thank you for calling me gorgeous. In 300 years of life, it was the most unexpected and wonderful gift anyone has ever given me. As Sam looked up at Queen Vex, he realized that something profound had changed in their brief conversation. The fearsome alien ruler was still there, but now he could see the person behind the crown, and perhaps for the first time in her long life, Queen Vex felt truly seen by another being. It was the beginning of not just a new alliance between their species, but a new understanding of what it meant to rule with both strength and heart.